Good evening and welcome to another episode of the Vigilate Dialogues Buzz. I am your host, Shaina M. Smith Archer. With me tonight, my co-host and friend from the BVI Buzz podcast, Gary Reimer, all the way from the ATL tonight. And around from Sikabe is Mr. Aaron Paralan. And we have one more guest that hopefully will be joining us in a few. So we are looking forward to a great wrap up tonight. We've been doing a six-part series. This is our sixth episode. So if you are just tuning in tonight for the first time, we are also simulcast on Tola Radio VI FM 100.5 and live on Facebook as well as YouTube on the Vigilante Dialogues channel and page. So if you want to go back and view those past episodes, feel free to go and like and subscribe, and you can watch all of them in their entirety. Gentlemen, how was your week?
Pretty busy.
Pretty
Very much eventful. Family funeral today and so forth. So, one of those days.
Okay. Condolences. Yeah. All right. Well, we had a very eventful past 6 weeks, and I'm really glad that we did take on the challenge, I would say, Gary, of doing this and getting all this information that we've been downloading out there. And when I wrap up tonight, just talking a little bit more in terms of closing off, the implications of the COI and the recommendations that are currently being implemented, and then get into the National Sustainable Development Plan and what that is currently being tabled in the House. I think it was tabled by the Premier last week, and I'm assuming it's been accepted. And here is our other guest tuning in, Paul on the ball, Hewlett. Good night, Mr. Hewlett.
Good night. Great to be here. Hope you're hearing me clearly.
Yes, we are. We're already live. So we're just about to start the conversation, but I have to do my public service announcements as usual. The first one is register to vote. Your vote is your voice. We should not take for granted our ability to cast a ballot. Blood, sweat, and tears have been lost for this right. And we want to make sure that after you register, make sure you get up that morning and go out and actually vote. Right? So we also want to talk about, I just want to touch on, let persons know I posted my latest Facebook post. I had a commentary, Gary, under some more of my thoughts around the Constitution review, so persons can see some of the specifics that we may not have touched on during the broadcast over the last few weeks. But it's all on there, and I've also been publishing them on the news sites. Persons can catch them all there and see what's going on. So last week we touched on elections, elected, and the electorate, and I think we had a very vibrant discussion on some of the things around upcoming election and what's happening there. But since Paul is new and joining us tonight, I want to give him opportunity to share some of his thoughts on what we've been referring to, Paul, as the perfect storm, where we had a commission of inquiry. We were talking about decolonization, and still, the implications of the recommendations of the COI. So all that's been happening to us over the last almost a year now. What are your thoughts on it all in terms of where we are as a community and where we're heading to?
Well, I guess in a nutshell, without dragging out too much, I really feel that the general public I don't want to say confused, but have very mixed feelings overall on where we're at. When you speak to individuals, as the word says, on the street, they are very mixed feelings. Some people are very hurt. Some people are very confused. There's a lot of talk about we don't want the white man to be telling us how to run our show. We are our own bosses. There are those who are upset with the present party because they said they've opened the door and let them in and allow them to kind of bulldoze us. So it's a feeling of lack of security overall. There's that overall feeling that one doesn't know where that's. Are you hearing a noise? I think I need to Just
Yeah,
shut
we
down
heard
something here. I hope you're not hearing.
something.
Yeah, I think that's me. I just shut it down.
Okay.
Yeah, my apologies. So I just think there's this overall feeling for people. Um, and again, I don't want to be specific, so to say, not that they're being sold out by anything specifically, but there's that feeling of people that we are not fully in control of our destiny,
Mm-hmm.
and we need to get that control back. We need to be the ones that are in control of where we're going, not somebody else. There's that deep-seated feeling that there's somebody out there that can tell us whether we can have a piece of land or not, whether we can own property, whether we can have how much money we should have in the bank. There's just that general overview that people are afraid that we're going to lose that control of what we as Virgin Islanders have always had.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is the overview. That's what I've found when you speak to people in general.
Okay. That it created a lot of uncertainty to what we have become accustomed to in our way of life.
Correct, correct.
Mm-hmm.
We for years we have been used to a certain way of living. I mean, at one point it was just Guernsey and Turks and Caicos that were earning more money than we were. Life was good. You weren't worried. You didn't even bother to check your bank account. You traveled multiple times. The average version I know was I would meet people in different parts of the world every other week.
Yeah.
And life was good, so to speak. And all
Yeah.
of a sudden it all changed. Bam, followed hurricane, followed by commission inquiry, followed by
Pandemic.
mismanagement, and it all just suddenly came to a crashing halt,
Yeah.
and so then we started asking all these questions: what went wrong?
Yeah. 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 It's really interesting. So, what we've done over the last few weeks, in talking again of the COI and the discouragement, distrust that has come out of this whole experience, I think is one of those things that has to be rebuilt when it comes to our elected leadership and this leadership as a whole, because it's like we place our trust in persons when we elect them. So last week we started talking about what the elections are, who the elected are, and the electorate and the role of each, and how that the electorate needs to start to understand that they are the employers of the elected, and that we need to be more involved and participate outside of just elections, but in the governance of our country, because all of that is part of bringing accountability. So I found an interesting article online, and Gary and I are going to flip through some stuff and you guys will give us feedback. So it's called Political Strategies, right? So I clicked on this thinking it was something different, Gary. Right? So it's 14 types of political strategy. So I want you guys to give us feedback in terms of if any of it sounds familiar. All right, so Gary, I'll start with the first one. Divide and conquer. Encourage the masses to focus on minor differences between each other as opposed to their common needs. Does that sound familiar as a political strategy that's employed here?
Very much, very much, very much.
All right, Gary, next one.
Unite and conquer, promising to deliver change that a majority of people strongly want to win support, better known as populism.
So the next one, bait and switch, promising one thing and delivering another. For example, promising populism, but implementing unpopular policies that benefit an elite.
Bread and circuses, the theory that the masses will be uninterested in politics no matter how bleak if they are provided with basic sustenance and entertainment. Bread and circuses.
The first time I've heard it before too as that.
Never heard that before either. Yeah.
Yeah, but I understand what it means. And these are some of the things where, again, I thought this was like positive strategies, and it turned out this is what people refer to when they tell you they don't like to get involved in politics. They don't like elections. They can't wait for it to be over because of this type of behavior and the negativity or negative connotations that it carries. So another one that they had here was talking about stability and nostalgia, promising to stop change, defend the status quo, or bring back the past. This sells because people may value stability, fair change, and have strong nostalgia for the past.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
Safety and security, promising to make the world a safer place with security. This is typically only applied to dread risk that people strongly fear as opposed to actual risk.
Okay.
That was
My
security,
phone.
safety
My
and
phone.
security.
Okay. So again, it's like persons go out campaigning, and I think one of the things that they take these things, they take what people are telling them at face value, right? Because you're thinking that they're looking out for the interest of the country and for you as a citizen of the country, and you start to realize they're basically telling you what it is you want to hear, but not necessarily committed to implementing these things. Justice, promising and or delivering a more just world as this is perceived by supporters.
Euphoric change, promising aggressive change that represents a leap forward to some desired future.
And then there's ideology, promoting an ideology using media and social processes such as groupthink in order to secure power for those who claim to represent the ideology. So we see this a lot in US politics as well as the UK politics if you follow global politics, where you have a certain segment of the population that thinks a certain way, and everybody more or less goes along with what is being discussed.
Right. Us
All
versus
right,
them. Sorry.
go ahead.
Us versus them, uniting a group against some other group. For example, an elite that educates a population to fear a foreign power or minority group. This serves to distract the population from domestic problems such as systems and policies that benefit an elite at a cost to a society such as inefficiency, risk, and waste.
What do you guys think about that? Do we suffer from that problem?
I would say so. Well, it depends on the concept of how you put it, how you read it, right?
Mm-hmm. Is
Because
there a us versus them in the room?
some people feel that way.
Ah,
I think I thought Aaron.
Yes. There is that is very prominent in our political cycle.
mm-hmm.
I think there was a book that I was reading recently. I was trying to remember the word that they utilized, but what it basically says is that there is that group of persons who actually from from a certain point, whether they went to college or whatever it is they did, or they got into this group, that they perceive themselves to be better than everyone else and more knowledgeable than anyone else. But it also protects them. And this is a lot of times why people get into groups. It happens small, and some people will join a church group just so that they can
Mm-hmm.
be part of an elite group,
Mm-hmm.
right? Others will join, different groups. I'm not trying to pick on different groups, but that elitism allows them to feel better than everyone else and gives them that level of power that they desire.
Mm-hmm.
So there are people that will join certain groups just because they want power, they seek power. Their result is power, and
Mm-hmm.
so that is now seen to me at one of the highest levels is at the political level, whereby there are those who it is perceived that they've only gotten involved with this group because they perceive power for themselves and for their families and for their close friends,
Mm-hmm.
and nobody else really. The perception is that nobody else really seems to feel as if they are loved or they're cared for. And
Yeah.
certainly the money isn't certainly coming their way. You
Yeah.
know, you see the certain people driving certain cars, you see houses, you see apartments going up. It seems to be the same people doing everything, and then you hear people saying, "Well, I run a business, but look at them over there compared to me." And
Mm-hmm.
I think that is a them versus us. Um,
Yeah, and I'll give you a live example from past election cycles. You remember the talk about we looking out for the small man? That's
right.
at them versus us.
Right.
That we have issues too where we talk about, oh, we're outnumbered. That's them versus us. And Paul, you made the example of persons perceiving the UK as an external force.
Right.
You know, so that's another example of them versus us. So as long as there's any type of inequity along, as you're saying, power lines or money, there's that mentality of them versus us that politicians can exploit as a way to gain support. So, you know, they make them your enemy. So therefore you'll come with us. And then, you know, you're under the impression that they really have your best interest at heart, but that's not necessarily the case. You know, persons say certain things again to get elected, but whether or not this is their true philosophy in terms of what they're looking at, you know, and what it is they're doing, you will see you know, whether or not this is something that they actually believe. So you know, and I'm sharing this tonight because we want to educate the electorate. And a lot of times people, you know, over the years ask me, you know, what's happening? You know, we vote for people and it's like there's no change or there's no real change in the way things are done. And it seems as if, you know, you're just on a rinse and repeat cycle. And this is part of it. It's something where we can get what was it, Gary? Caught up in the bread and circus.
Yes, bread and circus.
We can't get caught up in the bread and circus. We have to really start to peel back the layers and take people to task in what it is, how they present themselves, and truly having a platform that makes sense, you know, and is grounded in reality as far as, you know, are these things that they really can do, or are they overemphasizing differences within a society again to create division? And with that, no, is where, you know, you get a certain sector to support you, but it's really not on a good basis or has a good motive behind of it, right? So the other one after that I really had me chuckling was pork barrel. So I know in the US politics, most people know about pork barrel, but that's something we don't refer to here. But this is what it is, and we know we've seen it. The use of government funds to indirectly buy support. For example, a government that heavily spends on infrastructure to support construction companies, unions, and employment such that supporters benefit. This comes at a heavy cost to society as a whole because this spending tends to be irrational and non-productive, such as massive infrastructure in remote locations that is useless to the economy, but useful for legally distributing funds to supporters.
Well, an even simpler example of that is recent elections in one of our neighboring Caribbean islands.
Mhm.
The then, which is still the now prime minister, had a big concert using about a week before the elections. Had this massive concert which cost them over $1 million, bringing in singers from overseas. Of course, it was free.
Uh-huh.
So everybody attended because they wanted to hear this singer, which normally have to pay 50 or 60 or $100 to go and see. And he claimed it was non-political. It was just,
Yeah.
he just randomly decided he wanted to have this massive concert with this very expensive singer.
Mhm.
So they're the typical example within our region. And of
Yeah.
course, we can even go a little further locally. Um, Although I don't want to use specific examples, but we've heard individuals, complain and talk about different things being built and wars and different things all of a sudden. It is Christmas time, hams and turkeys and all the other things that go around. So I won't get into that in detail, but for sure, I see Gary.
You see it.
I think you understand where I'm going.
I can tell you guys without fear of contradiction. For the years that I worked in government, every election year, there would be overspending in the government budget. So you would see a spike,
Right.
And it would be around certain things. Because again, a lot of projects get started and a lot of work is commissioned, but it doesn't necessarily, amount to, any specific work plan that might have been in the case. So someone was asking about the number. So call in, it's 541-1192. And we have a call coming in. Caller, good night.
Hey, good night, guys. You guys can hear me? I think I can hear you guys.
Sure, we're hearing you loud and clear.
All right, pleasure to be on the program with you guys, man. I was just listening and I was curious, which part are you get a list there from? Because I have something to say after you say that.
Okay, well, basically, I found it, just Googled. I was looking for political strategies, and this is what came up. And when I started to read through it, I was very surprised.
So you don't believe, honestly, Anna, we has grown, educated adults. You don't think every last member of our House Assembly, for as long as God knows, been cast somewhere and taught exactly what going on in them steps there, guys?
Yeah, yeah. A lot of it we know, we see it. That's what I'm talking about. It's like this is we have live examples here, and this is what I
But
think.
you see what happened, Empress? We always used to see these things. I'm sure the panel, we all pick up on these things here. Then you try to point it out in your own words and explain back to them
Mm-hmm,
why you're on the system and why the leadership is so poor.
mm-hmm.
But this document what you find here now is a clear indication of this ain't no accident.
Yeah,
Them and literally they be on a puppet program and cloning the people with these things there.
yeah, yeah.
I just thought they were curious. I never came across the list in my 30 odd years.
Well,
And I think they right on the nail. I
yeah.
personally, I want this list and I plan to, I would love to cover this topic too.
Okay.
Because I know, you see me and you learning about the list tonight. I bet you every member of our parliament had know about this for years and for years now.
Well, this is what the political strategist would
Right.
show it. So, and it's for you as a person and individual, got to know whether or not you are walking integrity and do right by the people, or you can just do anything to get elected.
All 13 of them to practice that and they master it to the point where it's like you could pick like Ant-Man, you could put on and pick up your power as you feel like.
Mm-hmm.
Them man the draft for any one of these 14 things that will throughout a day, throughout an interview, throughout a conversation. It's like the 14 laws of witchcraft of politician function by nearly. I don't know, man. It just resonated so much with me. I've been listening to the program for a few weeks, but I couldn't help but call tonight, man. You guys definitely onto something with this list. I believe we need to start confront them and put them on polygraph tests and ask them how much they know about these things here.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of them practicing that. We forget, like I said, all these little extra terms where, and it right back to Westminster where budget increase every year, promises increase. Some glorious future, you always need one more time to accomplish this goal that we never reach. And look at right there in the 14 steps of why it don't reach.
Yeah, yeah,
Enough of them will just resign if you read the list for them kind of so guilty.
yeah.
But then I don't want to derail the topic. I was just curious as to where one could find it. And
Okay.
if you guys see a familiar pattern in all members of the House Assembly, past and present, they subscribe to this. This is one of the things they sat down and talk.
So I shared the link in the chat, and I also sent it to you. So you have it now.
All right, man. Thank you guys. Enjoying the program.
Thanks for calling. Take care.
Yes, sir.
Shaina, the only thing I would say in response to the caller
Mm-hmm.
is that maybe in modern day politics, once you say you're sorry, and then all is well.
Yeah. So that's the short-term memory that they play on.
Yes, you just apologize and all is well. We can move on after that.
Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things. So again, we as the electorate, right? We consider ourselves to be intelligent people. So we should be able to see. I don't want to call it a con, but you should be able to see a light when it coming at you, right? Because you're able to get some information. But I think the challenge, though, along the lines of what we've been talking about all these past weeks, is the lack of information or the access to the information.
It's not just the access to the information. There's some additional factors. There's a disbelief by some. There's a lack of desire to accept our reality as to who we are and what we're going through, what we're experiencing.
Yeah.
There's all these human aspects of individuals just seeing the reality. You see it in front of you, and you know that it's real, but you're not accepting it because you want something else to be real. But reality say, no, this is actually a pen. You say, no, but I would like it to be a spoon. Say, well, no, it's a pen. Well, I apologize. Please make it a spoon.
Yeah.
And
that's where when you promise safety and security, they buy into that because you're promising them that change won't come. And there's no such thing. Change has to come if there's going to be progress.
Correct.
Go ahead, Gary.
No, I think the danger also is in the electorate is that because they can become desensitized to anything that people are saying, even if it's a true platform from someone who'll become transparent in what they want to plan, that people are become so disinterested to politicians as a whole. They lump everybody into a barrel as opposed to looking at the individual person. So the danger is that the electorate becomes desensitized and just feel that everybody is in the same bucket.
Right.
Everybody's following one of these 14 strategies to become a politician. So you're the same. So I'm not even gonna participate. I'm not even gonna listen to what you're saying because you're one of them.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the danger.
Yeah.
Right. Circus is right there.
Yeah. And I think,
Mm.
Aaron,
Mm.
what's your thought there?
Please
His
don't be hero.
audio sounds like it's fading in and out.
What Gary
Yeah, he's
just
like
said.
coming in and out.
Oh, there you
What Gary?
Go ahead.
I'm
Go ahead.
fading in and out.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, what Gary just said. What Gary just said is very important because it's something voters would have in their minds if they're really educated on these points. You know, and it's good. It's good to share this information with the people so they are able to identify what type of character is coming into their homes, trying to speak to them. You know,
Yeah.
but I would say this to the voters: look at the individual's character before politics. Look at the individual's character before, and don't
Yeah, his connection tonight isn't good. Okay.
Can everyone hear me?
The last part was cut off. Go again.
Hmm?
Oh, all together. Okay, his
Okay.
signal tonight isn't thing.
So
So
the
we're
next
gonna wrap up on the last one. So the last one I found very interesting, and it's called coercive power, ruled by fear and observation. This can create an environment where people are afraid to criticize a power structure, let alone challenge them for power. And I think, Paul, this has been one of our problems where, sometimes we talk about we don't have enough people to participate um, as elected leaders, right? And I find that to be kind of an oxymoron because in the days when you had 50 years ago, you had less education, and people still ran for public office. And I think they made more good decisions than bad ones along the way. Otherwise, that we wouldn't be where we are today. That's the first thing. And now we're in a society where, we have doctorates walking around knocking dogs, so to speak. But people don't want to get involved in politics because, again, they feel that, politicians lie and have this kind of, disdain about them. And what all of this now turns into is voter apathy, where people don't want to go out to vote because they're saying, they don't see why they should vote, have to actually sit down and consider voting for the lesser of two evils. And I've heard people say this all the time. And I think it's an indictment on us as a society if we have to say that in terms of going into elections, that we don't have good people that we can go in, put out there, one, to run and to vote for. That we are actually, we're left with kind of like the worst two choices or three choices and saying that this is all we have. I can't accept that. So I say to people all the time, I say, people, because of what they've seen in the past and misunderstanding about what politics is supposed to be about, they have this idea that, it's the mudslinging and the dirty dealings and all these other things that happen. And yes, these things happen. We ain't gonna be naive about that. However, it cannot be that, again, for us as a society, we are relegated to voting for the lesser of two evils. What's your thoughts on that?
Okay, I'll jump in and then let you guys take over. I'll just be short. And what changed my mind straight away is that it's quite common for people to say, I don't want to be a lawyer because lawyers are liars.
Mm-hmm.
Yet still in recent years, we've had more young people going into law than anything else. And so taking that into the political sphere now,
Mm-hmm.
what has happened is that it has become so negative, and I have to be careful how I put it, because I don't want to pin on anybody specifically because it's like a sore thumb in front of us now. But because of the role that some of our politicians have played in recent years, even those people now are afraid to get involved in the political arena. And the perception is that only those with the mentality of being totally apathetic are the ones who are getting involved in politics. But I beg to differ and say, on the contrary, that there is a group of people now who are coming out there and saying, listen, if we don't get involved, then we're going to allow those who are crooked and who actually only into nepotism and all the likes that we like to talk about. They're the ones who will then run the country, and then what? And then who is going to suffer? We the people. We the people. We talk about democracy. Democracy is for who? Is for the people.
Yeah.
Therefore, we have an obligation. The good people of society. People are looking for new people, new faces. People are
Yeah.
looking for change. And so therefore we have to stand up.
Gary?
I would kind of piggyback off a little bit what I said a little bit last week. I was trying to change it a little bit where I see this being kind of could be an issue, even not for the voters looking at politicians, but it could also be an issue sometimes within the political parties or stuff, or within the government, for example, where we sometimes create this hierarchy of power and control, where, as I stated last week, where we create this atmosphere where the premier, the title of premier, whoever that person is, him or her, that person has more power over everybody else. So whatever that person say is what to go. So the members of the party, even though they're supposed to be the equal members, they may be afraid to criticize that person in leadership as the premier because of fear of being ostracized or whatever, because of fear. So that's one area I think we got to be very careful where within the elected government, where we as the people kind of relegate power to based on particular titles or whatever. Everybody should be able to contribute for the betterment of the people, but sometimes we kind of create and feel that the title of premier, whoever sits in that particular seat, has power over everything and control.
I just
What's your thought?
okay, go on, Era.
No, I agree. And Shaina, you said something as it related to individuals that were elected. I don't know if you or Paul said it, but individuals who were elected of the past were less educated than those of now. But what they had over this generation was skills. They were very skilled individuals. So you're looking at individuals who are more craftsmen, individuals who are more like plumbers and so forth. You had the doctors, you had the street activists and so forth, the Noah Lloyds. Although he wasn't elected, you had those type of individuals influencing the political cycles. Fast forward now, we've educated our people, we've brought them along more. We've made them more of individuals with the book sense. They have a lot of the book sense. They're able to articulate things differently. But where we have lost the balance in between is utilizing our common senses, knowing that decisions we are going to make would hamper our future endeavors. Knowing the difference between having the tactical knowledge of dissecting certain things in government, versus back then where individuals, and I don't really want to take us so far back like I'm going Stone Age, but it's good to always look back and pay homage to what was and the developments of back then, and look at where we could probably use some of those skills in today. Because I see a lot of things that we're going through in these modern times that I think would make a lot of our past leaders roll in their graves. And if they're not rolling in their grave, they're stumbling out the blocks right now, hoping to come back. There's a lot of things that we've allowed to happen. We we as the voting populace have allowed these things to happen because, and it goes back to some of the things you guys were saying about the nepotism and some of the political strategies of the elitists.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Those things have caused us to go before the commission of inquiry.
Yeah.
Because we're more focused, and I said this last week, sometimes we're more focused on becoming re-elected
Mm-hmm.
than doing the people's work.
Yeah.
And I believe if you do the people's work, becoming re-elected should be a no-brainer for people.
Yeah.
As long as you do the people's work, people will see the truth. People will see your work ethics. But if you're fishing for votes and you're more focused on creating a yes man nation, creating a nation of people that are more susceptible to the likeness of the things you're going to do for them versus what the country needs, that is
Yeah.
when we're going to continuously fall into trouble.
In the same traps. Yeah. Yeah, and that for me too again goes back to the quality of leadership. So people had it to be that we have a leadership deficit, but this is about the quality of leadership that we have coming before us, and whether or not again we go for the bread and circus, or we're looking for people of substance that we want to go in there and do right by the people, as we're saying, but not just arbitrarily. Because I could go in there and say, this is what the people need. Paul comes in and he gives me a whole different spin. Gary has a different focus on it. But there are things that if we listen to what it is that, the grassroots are saying, and I shared, I think it was today or yesterday with somebody, that there's a saying that says that, you can judge how a society actually treats its people by looking at how it treats its youngest and its oldest. And if you see, when you start looking at things around anything that has to do with the youths, whether it's sports, it's the school system, after school programs, these are things that will affect now the adults in the middle. It's like these things don't just happen, arbitrarily. When you end up with dysfunction in your society, you have to go back to the root. And then when you look at now how we are treating our seniors, because these are the people now that have a lot of institutional knowledge, I would say, in our communities. And that was one of the things I think that pained me the most from the pandemic, that we lost so much of our elders out of our society. Because, not just that they were matriarchs or patriarchs of their families, but that, these are the people that have the history that needs to be passed on from generation to generation. And, some of them may not have had that chance to do that yet. So we have to start paying closer attention to some of these things. And again, the electorate forming their opinions first of, what do you think are the priorities for the country? And I think this is an excellent segue now into the National Sustainable Development Plan, in terms of talking about, what are the things we want to see in our country 5, 10, 20 years from now, and start to be more focused around plans. Because, the saying goes, if the failure to plan is a plan to fail. So for me, when we are, here struggling to have decent roads, reliable water and electricity supply, those things are happening because of a lack of planning, and it's not just about building stuff, but the maintenance and the operation of it is just as important, and you have to make sure that those things are in place. So I pulled up the draft version. I couldn't find the last version of this that was laid in the House of Assembly. I think it was last week, right? So we're gonna roll out some information, and you guys will give me your thoughts in terms of what do you think should be the priorities for the country in terms of, what is it, what is it we're going to do, whether it's policies, it's programs, what are those things that need immediate attention, as far as it goes. So based on the work that the consultant did, and they had community meetings and so on about this, the national goals now have been identified as: islanders are empowered for a sustainable future in an inclusive, vibrant society, living fulfilled lives. So that's one goal. I find some of these things to be kind of long, so y'all bear with me. I like, and my thing was, is like these things need to be shortened so that it's easy for a
Remember.
15-year-old who this is going to affect to remember. and understand what it is this plan is talking about. The second one, the Virgin Islands has a prosperous, vibrant, thriving, and internationally competitive economy. 3, the Virgin Islands has good governance, an accountable government, citizen participation, and a safe and secure society. And the fourth one is the Virgin Islands embraces environmental sustainability for sustainable island development. So under each of these goals, now there are some outcomes. And I think I'm gonna take them as a batch so we could kind of get through them a little quicker. So under the empowered sustainable future, outcome number 1, healthy population with healthy families. 2, educated and highly skilled population, creating a dynamic 21st century labor market. Adaptive and shock responsive social protection systems, leaving no one behind. Equality of opportunity and gender equality. And the 5th one, uniquely us, our culture, our identity, our heritage. All right. So what are your thoughts about that? All of that. You don't have to necessarily speak to those, but when we talk about a vibrant society living fulfilled lives, what do you think that should look like in our society?
I want to jump in first simply because I want to piggyback on something that Gary said, which takes me actually into that. And he spoke about the political leader. I want to look at the political leader from a different aspect. I'm answering the question, by the way. I'm not deviating. But what the other aspect of it, Gary, is that political leaders abuse by manipulating their ministers. And that was seen recently when the Minister of Education became the Minister of Education, Sports, Culture, Agriculture, Fisheries. And I was like, well, how many heads does this one man have? Right? And so therefore, how is it possible for him to get things done? When we look at, and again, coming back to what you're saying now with good governance, when we look at, let's say, the roads of the Virgin Islands, how the roads are going to be fixed, what we've found, and all of us drive on the same roads every day, here's the challenge. If we're driving on a road today, it's a nice road, and then the rain comes down, and
wash it away.
You don't want to go down that road anymore. You try to find a different route to go on the road, because what we have, what is not happening is long-term thinking and things that are sustainable. So therefore, you possibly may want a different group who are fixing the road versus those who are focusing on building new roads, right? In that ministry. And then if I deviate across to agriculture, if somebody is, I remember, let's say my mother saying to me, I remember in the 70s when it was agricultural week, you couldn't, the road was so, the cars to go to agricultural week, I mean, no, you could drive there 10 or 20 times to the agricultural show.
Yeah, it used to be a traffic jam heading to Paraquita Bay.
What happened to the traffic jam and agriculture? Because the Minister of Education was too busy doing so many other things, he has no time for agriculture. But I mean, isn't agriculture a very important part of our economy? Fisheries place has broken down. So what happens now? I'm not even going to discuss the market. Let me pass it on to you guys. I'm going to get a little carried away.
I think that when we talk about these plans, I think it's very important to kind of focus also that these plans that we have should be something that is not incumbent on who's in power, meaning that these plans should have a particular timeline in place. So whether it be 30, 10, 20, 30 years, the plan is adopted, it's approved. So whatever government is in power at that particular time, and new government, part of the embrace has to be part of this plan as their agenda. They have no choice because it's been ratified by the people, it's been approved. This is something that we've all agreed upon. So we need to kind of focus on that as well, to making sure that it's something that we're not in these cells, because I think we are accustomed of working in 4-year cycles and not anything past 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. It seems like it's hard to kind of conceptualize a plan for that time, but it's needed. I think when we talk about education and those things and things like that, one of the things that needs to be focused is we need to come up with these plans, and as you said, they need to be implemented. right now, I think they're talking about doing a curriculum review. My
Mm-hmm.
whole thoughts with these kind of things are, we have a lot of plans in place. We good with plans. We seem to like to have plans, paper, put up on counter, on computers and folders or whatever. But I'm more for the implementation of these things. Like, okay, let's go ahead and put something in place. What's the plan to move forward? So I'm not against a sustainability plan because I think it's very needed. But I think within some of these kind of plans, we need to have short-term goals of making some of these accomplished and having something to show for it moving forward.
Yeah, and let me just take in a point of information before Aaron gets in. One of the things that's part of this document that I was happy to see is that an implementation framework needs to be done. So, similar to what's happening with the COI recommendations, where there's an implementation unit that's driving the process, there has to be some agency or some function. If you put, even if you're putting it in an existing ministry, that is actually monitoring this. Because I remember when I joined government in 2003, and that time there was something called the National Integrated Development Strategy. And it was an awesome document, Gary, like you're saying. But it was on a shelf because on the front of it, it clearly said draft. And it basically stayed in draft for the life of the plan. It was a 10-year plan. And it expired, I think, in 2011. So it was done it was done 2001 and it was never adopted. And I think I find that it's one of those things where politicians don't like to commit themselves to long-term plans, because they seem to like to change at the women fancy, when sometimes there has to be some type of long-term commitment for there to be progress.
Agreed.
Because there are so many projects I used to see started, and when elections came, if the administration changed, they were thrown out, even if they were of benefit to the community. I mean, the ones that don't make sense, fine, you have to change course. But the ones that have a social benefit to the community, they should be carried forward. And that is your job to me as a leader. You're a steward of the country's resources. So it's not just about your ideas and what your party wants to do so that they could get credit for it. But this is about carrying out the people's business, like we said earlier, and progressing the country in a more structured and intentional way. Because to talk about healthy population, there's so many things that can go into that, because there's financial health, there's physical health, there's mental health, emotional health, spiritual health of a country also has to be taken into account when we talk about, what makes for happy families, and helps curtail some of the social ills that we see happening in our society now, So social protection, first thing that comes to my mind is unemployment benefits. And I'm going to keep preaching this because people took this thing for granted after the hurricane that, persons that are wage workers, daily paid, if they don't work, they don't get paid. And they're the ones where having systems or safety nets like that, where you're contributing to the social security scheme, not just for age benefit, but it's there to help you along the way, So if you have a situation like the pandemic where you're unable to work for, say, up to 6 months, you should be able to get some kind of benefit from that, similar to when you have disability or sick leave or maternity. You get some type of monies or income that to help tide you over from one job essentially to the next. So those are the things I would like to see in terms of when it starts to roll out now on the practical level, that these are the things that we start to see, and not just some pie in the sky story like we were just talking about before. That sounds good, but where is it actually going to move the country forward, and where we're going to be at?
Let me just quickly say, if one has worked within the government before, the challenge with individuals in power is that the permanent secretary will very soon warn you that you have to have what they call a 4-year mentality, because especially if you end up in the middle, in between that party going out and new party coming in, they're going to tell you that, listen, these guys are politicians and they have their way of thinking, You have to protect yourself. And
Mhm.
so until we change that mentality, that is the way that not just permanent secretaries, but that individuals that
So
work for the government think.
Mhm.
They're in there and they're saying, okay, well, that's what that minister is saying now, but tomorrow, what's the other minister who is coming and saying? So for Gary, the point that Gary is making is 100% correct. That there has to be not just sustainable, but a contingency plan that goes on for 10, 15, 20, 30 years. So when one government leaves and a new government comes in, they just
Mhm.
follow that plan. They don't just suddenly come and have these brand new ideas in their head and they just, okay, throw that out.
Mhm.
We've seen it happen. Buildings start being built and then a new government comes in and that building just sits right there
Yeah.
until the other government comes back in maybe 8 or 10 years later.
Yeah.
We've seen that happen.
Yeah. And well, if we can cement the COI recommendation implementation where it has to transition from one government to the next, it's the same thing that needs to happen with this plan. And again, it's be non-negotiable that we are expecting if these are the things that are committed to your methodology in terms of how you might put it together or get it implemented is you have flexibility in that regard, but it should never be that you decide something totally different from the research and the consultation that has gone into something like this to see in 20 years 2040 this is the country we want to say we are living in, and not there be a struggle because there's nothing here that again it's beneath us being able to obtain. You have $1 billion economy, a $400 million government budget. What's the problem? It has to be the mindset, you know what I'm saying, with the execution of these things. Aaron, what's your thoughts there? And if persons are interested in calling in to share their thoughts, you can call 541-1192 with your questions or comments for the panel, or you can actually type them into the chat on the Facebook or the YouTube feed, and we'll get to them. All right, sir.
I had a train of thought right before you brought in the normal, but I was taking some notes. As it relates to items on the National Sustainable Plan, you opened up stating about policies and programs.
Mm-hmm.
The policies are there, but if you look at what's happening around here, a lot of our programs are being shut down. Hence the reason why you see a lot of the departments feel as though they are undermanned or some of their resources are being underutilized because the programs have been shut down. For instance, in education.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, in education. I personally feel, and a lot of y'all can chime in, those after school programs that were there were very extremely beneficial to a lot of us because it it was an option for us whether we took it up or not
Mm-hmm.
to have something to do after school, whether to advance certain skills we had or to actually keep us active, to keep us educationally, academically active.
Mm-hmm.
When those programs have been put on the back burner and we say that we don't have the resources to support these programs, but in part we find the funds to support these exuberant funds for consultants that aren't valuable.
Mm-hmm.
How can I now go to a voter and tell them no? I need their support because I want to revamp programs and I want to set policies in place to do all these different things when they've seen over the years that has just been eggs in shells.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm
Bread
saying?
and circus. That's a new terminology. Bread and circus.
Yes, bread and circus. You
Bread
know,
and circus.
we've been going. We went to homes. We're going to homes. We speak on platforms, and we open up and we say all these things that we want to do for the people.
Mm-hmm.
But all I've seen, we've been consistently doing is trying to regulate humans, regulate the human, regulate policies for this, policies for that, and
Mm-hmm.
policies are needed. but there has to be some form of a balance
Mm-hmm.
in the policies and the programs, because you could put all the policies in place. If your people aren't educated and brought along, those policies will continuously have to be revamped because the people aren't educated enough
Mm-hmm.
or aren't brought along enough to sustain these policies or to understand these policies and know the right from wrongs, because we have gone away from the programs.
Yeah. And that's so key, because as you're saying that, I'm thinking about, let's say for example, if we ask what is the agricultural policy, Paul, do we have one? Do we have an education policy? The other day I saw a document circulating for the cultural policy. So that, I know work is being done on that. If we ask what is our economic policy, can we find that? Immigration policy, do we know what that is? So these are the things that help to know, we take a plan like this and say, yes, we want to have, a state-of-the-art education system, however they described it. But you have to have an education policy and a labor policy now that drives what your intention is.
Right.
And with that now, the departments and the ministry start to have a clear direction. Okay, to get this policy done, we need this program, or we need to do this project. And it's going to cost X amount of dollars. So these are things now you have to put into the budget. Because it grieved my heart when I noticed in the 2023 budget that we have 14% of that total budget has gone to the Ministry of Education. 13, not 30, 13%.
Okay.
And again, how we spend our money is indicative of what our priorities are for our country. Because I can't expect the education ministry or the system to be better if we're not putting the resources towards it and saying, hey, this is the priority for this year, that we put in more money into this because we have facilities to bring up to speed. We have our teachers. We need to pay better, as well as employ more people. The psychosocial support in our school system is another concern of mine, where we need more guidance counselors. We need career counselors in our school system. Because if we want, functional, law-abiding, thriving people, according to this, you have to put money into your education system, because those are the people, as this is saying, that's going to be the workforce in the economy. And if they're not just have a high school diploma, but they are groomed with a certain skill set to take up the careers and start the businesses in your economy, then your people are going to be left behind in your development, because somebody else is going to come in and take up the jobs and the business opportunities. So I'll pause there. I see Paul pondering.
Well, Aaron kind of hit a hot button there, and then you kind of carried it on. And I'm like, I was thinking to myself, well, maybe I shouldn't speak because I'm too passionate about this. He spoke about the after-school program that was being run by Vigilate de Castro. In the Department of Youth Affairs and Sports, of which I was the director, and I take over from the then Patrick Hargan, God rest his soul. And Patrick had done a really, really good job.
Yes.
But again, I have to be very careful how I say this. You actually made, I'll just copy what you said. It's not what percentage, it's 13%?
13.
13. So
Yeah.
how are you going to run an after-school program and, fix all these things that need to be fixed? Again, I'm trying not to be specific. I'm biting my tongue. But how all these things? We're supposed to do a sports policy to start it since Patrick Hargan's time. When I spoke to Patrick Hargan first, I thought that Patrick was going to go to me, sports program. Patrick rattled off. Patrick is all in his head.
Yeah.
When they spoke about the sports policy, it's as if it was being talked about for the first time. Up to now, it hasn't been ratified. Up to today.
Yeah.
Has not been dealt with. That's just one policy we're talking about here. You mentioned at least 7 or 8 different ones. I'm just talking about one, but the funds are being redirected into the wrong places. And so, things like education and all these different aspects of education that should be dealt with are not being dealt with. We still want to demand the same results from the students, but when this, for example, when the after school programs going on, they were being taught music, how to play all different sport instruments, from steel band to guitar to I can't even name all of them because I'm not a musician per se, right?
Mhm.
It was really in great depth. You could, if Violet could she tell you, it was a very comprehensive program.
Yes. Yeah.
So the last thing that I heard is that at one point the, one of the ministers said, okay, we're going to close down Youth Affairs Sports because it has no function. But it
Oh,
can't function if you've deleted everything from it. It just becomes just a shell.
yeah. Yeah. I'm telling you, you have the money. Money is never our problem, It's the management of this money.
But we complain about the youngsters getting into crime and all the different things. I've
Mm-hmm.
always said, again, I gotta be careful how I say this, but when there is a weakness within the government, the crime goes up
Mm-hmm.
every time. Every time. When things are being done incorrectly, crime goes up. So you take away all these different afternoon programs from the kids. What are they
Yeah.
doing now? They have to find something else to do.
Yeah.
They must find something else to do.
Idle hands are the devil's workshop. That's what Granny used to tell us.
I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is what's happening. But yeah, I'm off a roads as an engineer. But we as a country, we have to seriously look at what are our priorities. And as you take it in, let's say 5-year tranches, because this was something else, again, alluding to what Gary talked about, where we love plans. So, Gary, when I came into the Ministry of Finance 2003, there was a consultant that was hired to teach us how to do strategic plans. So I was part of the team now putting together the one for the Ministry of Finance, which included our departments, so customs, post office, um, who else? Inland Revenue, Treasury, and I think one other one. And it was just amazing to me because again, when we got together with the heads of departments, they knew exactly what needed to happen in their departments to set their departments at a higher standard. But it always came down to whether or not they would receive the funding to accomplish some of the things that needed to happen. So even if it meant in terms of whether it was about hiring staff so that you could give better service, or building a marine base so we could put the boats in, as a way to protect the assets that we spent hundreds, if not millions of dollars on at the end of the day. And we just had them there. So you had all these plans from that strategic standpoint. And again, these would be all what we break down the national sustainable plan, say for this 5 years, this is the things that we're working on, right? This is what we need to do with the post office. This is what we need to do with inland revenue. The new tax administration system, that those things are no new thoughts. All of those things are things that have been talked about for 20 years. You need to put in, accounting procedures and all of these different things now that somebody has to come to you 20 years later and tell you you need to put in project management system. Should never be the case because we know, but again, the quality of leadership has not been driving things based on priorities and saying, environment is important. These are the things that we need to do to safeguard our oceans as well as dealing with solid waste management. It's a crisis we have a Pakupan that we are ignoring.
Don't stop me with that one day. Don't stop me with that one day, Shaina.
It's a crisis.
Shaina,
And until we call it that, we're not going to address it.
Shaina,
Yeah.
let me open on this, right?
Go ahead.
I was, after my uncle's funeral today, I sat with some of my elderly men in the community. And I just started to list the amount of persons in between the first and third district who've died within the last, let's say within the last 24 months.
Mm-hmm.
None have been from natural causes. None have been from old age. All we're hearing is cancer, 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 cancer. So I look at this open burning situation we have in Pakupan, and I've been speaking about this for the last 2-3 years. Why have we not taken up an environmental census and how it affects the people around the first, second, and third district? Because it goes over the hill and it goes into the second also. I've been West End multiple times at the gym, and I had to close the gym windows because the smoke that comes in there smells like, when you're burning mattress, how that smells?
Yep.
So I'm down on the first district down West End, and it's killing me down there. The individuals that live in Parkwood Pond, I know sometimes you can't see the smoke, you can't see the smoke and how it's affecting you, but it spreads all across over the third district. So I know for a fact this the open burning this incinerator is causing it's causing a major issue to our people. It's causing a major issue to our people, and we have not even taken up a census on this as yet, or went out and do any sort of educational researches on what has been transparent. It's negative effect on our people. All we do, everybody going to talk about incinerator, they talk about this, they talk about they put more stipulations on individuals on the street for open burning. But who's putting the stipulations on the government for the open burning down there?
Yeah.
So it comes a point where now government, I'm not singling out anyone or trying to throw shade at anyone, right? But at some point, we have to look at, as you were saying, not always being the one to build, but we have to be the ones to maintain also. You can't wait until something is about to hit its dying stage to want to repair it.
Yeah.
You have to put the sufficient funding in place. If you're going to build a world-class incinerator, make sure you have the proper funding in place just in case something should transpire. You have backup, you have the monies there, the funds there to equip your people to go and service these things, not having to go in and revamp that I can't get the word out of my mind right now, how upset I am. I have to go into the budget to pull money from different departments just to subsidize what we need for over here.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Look, so and it goes in part of almost everything we build in. We build buildings, we construct roads, but we don't put anything in place for maintenance. I don't know if we need a separate consultant, a maintenance consultant, or we need some. Shaina, no.
You just said it. You said it was a lot of these things are common sense. We don't need any degree to tell us we have to maintain the stuff that we have, and not take it for granted that when things break down or they become damaged, that we just go out and buy a new one. Because when we look at government vehicles, sometimes it's like brand new vehicles and the fender is all dented. Because when it's destroyed, you just go and buy another one, and that's taxpayer dollars being wasted. And we have to be more careful, again, both the public officers as well as the public, in paying attention to it. So somebody just posted in the comments asking, should the responsibility of the country's finances be removed from the premier? What are your thoughts on that?
So let me hold my thought. Let me speak on something before I forget, because I want to speak on a couple different things. Was up there before I lose my train of thought. I think one of the things that we talked about before, that I always talk about too, is what's sadly is that we always operate in a reactive stage as opposed to proactive. We don't realize that reacting. Being reactive is going to cost you more money, more time, more resources than if you do proactively. Over the years, the things that you guys were talking about, one of my biggest things that I see all the time, Aaron talked about, is maintenance. Whenever I see these governments with these big contracts for whatever, and they buy these big equipments, I'm always curious to see, okay, which part of the contract covers maintenance? Because it's built into the contract. If you're buying something from a vendor, and you're spending millions of dollars particular, part of that money should be an annual contract for maintenance, whether it's a 5-year maintenance contract or 10-year or whatever. That should be built into equipment. Many times I've heard people told me who are working within government saying, oh, we're spending this much, we buy this equipment, medical equipment for the hospital or whatever, and we just bought it. There's no maintenance on it. So if it breaks down, let's just say it's a machine. I'm just hypothetically saying, for example, let's say for a kidney machine, whatever, for dialysis, whatever. You buy a dialysis machine for millions of dollars and you don't buy maintenance for it. Does that make any sense? Does those kind of things make any sense to you? Because at some point, no. So what's the next thing now? You have to pay somebody, fly somebody in, pay the highest rate for airfare, the highest rate per hour, because they're going to charge you by the hour to fix this particular system, charge you for the lodging, whereas you could have put that money aside for the long term. And again, they might say, oh, we don't have the money right now for this, but it's to be built into the plan what you're doing.
Yeah.
Secondly, this has been one of my concerns too with this whole air quality control. I always think that that's a problem. That Aaron spoke about this as well too. I think this is a serious problem, and I think that is occurring every single day down there, and I think it's affecting a lot of people. And I think we need to do. I think it's very important now that we do studies. Something needs to be done for us to get an idea of really what's going on. Because I think there is something going on. We just don't know what it is. It's affecting people's lives. It's a serious problem. I think it's a really disservice when you talk about your care for the society, when you're not even being concerned of making something that you're testing to making sure that the air quality is important for your citizens that's around who's living there. So I think it's a very disservice for people to speak of being caring and loving for the people, but based on what any money is in the budget for any air quality control. I don't remember seeing anything regarding health or anything like that. So no. So these are things I think that are very important coverage that I think that we really need to be. And again, I get very tired when I hear people talk about plans, because I'm more now for just getting things done, because I think we have enough plans on the table already in the folders and computers and desks folders. I just think we need to start looking at implementation at this particular point.
Yeah. So Paul, what do you think is the most urgent thing that we need to address in the next 5 years as far as the development of your country?
Well, I just think that whatever it is, this needs to be a 5-year plan. But I just wanted to just carry on from where Aaron started and then Gary went to. And he mentioned about us being reactive rather than proactive. And straight away I thought of the multi-purpose post complex. I mean,
that came to my mind. That's exactly what I was speaking about. I just didn't want to say single out anything. But keep going.
No, I'm just saying. I mean, if I just touch on the AC system alone and what we had to pay Puerto Rico to come in to plug in something at the back to try to run the AC.
The temporary facility.
You know, it's just crazy. The lights at the Aero Shirley grounds, you don't want to know the cost what it costs to put those lights on for an hour. So where is our system that we're putting in place? I think the most important thing right now, to be honest with you, is to get a government that's gonna put things in the right place. That, as Gary says, a government that understands the importance of us having a long-term plan, and a government that just doesn't have the mentality that, okay, if it's not me, then I don't care. Put a system in place whereby if they're not there, the next government that comes in can and will continue. There'll be continuity, there'll be sustainability, there'll be longevity. And so therefore, not one year people are talking about Guernsey and Turks and Caicos and the Cayman Islands and the BVI, all very wealthy. And a couple of years later, you can't even hear about the BVI, and people saying, well, people are struggling.
Yeah.
You know, so it's just a whole way of thinking. I think that's what we have to do. We have to change the whole mentality.
Yeah.
The new generation are being taught. The young generation now, all they want is, what are you going to give me? What are you going to give me? Because they're not being taught long term to think and wait in that process.
Actually, somebody just posted a comment on that same thing. Their first comment was, if governments committed to implementing plans and take advice from their well-trained technocrats, we would not have these kinds of issues.
I agree.
I second the motion. And then the other comment though was where you talked about, Paul, we have to become national focused and not individualistically focused. Where are the true nationalists?
So that first point, I think sometimes two people get into positions of power, and sometimes getting advice is something that they don't want to get anymore because they feel like, no, I'm in power now. It's to come from myself. I shouldn't need to get advice from somebody else, and that's a sad state of affair that we've become into, where that there are capable people who have capable ideas and capable skills to do different things, but if it's not coming from Shaina Smith, it might not be something that maybe I want to do because Shaina's bringing it.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be a great point, a great solution to our problem, but it's Shaina Smith bringing this. I can't implement this.
Yeah.
Because she might not be with my piety. She might have a different, these kind of things, these egos, and I think we suffer greatly for these kind of this thought process and mindset
Yeah.
and egos.
Yeah.
There used to be this commercial way back in the days when they were testing vehicles, and they said you could learn a lot from a dummy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I look at sometimes the simplest man on the street have some of the greatest solutions, especially when I speak to the older guys about road construction. They often tell you, when you're building a road, especially if it's a road that has a corner, you never build that road flat. The road has to be on a curve.
Mm-hmm.
When I drive on these roads and I'm going around a corner, I feel like I'm on a Ferris wheel. The road is flat. So, like the call, like the person just said, June Samuel. It's something I see that we have a problem with in this country, and Gary just hit on it. We're so egotistical in this country that we tend to just overstep some of these individuals who have such great ideas. We have them right in our departments. We have them. Some of them are our private secretaries, permanent secretaries. Even the simplest man on the street, some of the same neighborhoods and bars we go to have conversations, you hear some of the same solutions.
Yeah.
But I don't know why we are so afraid to utilize our own people. We have brilliant minds. This is the same reason why we educate our people. We send them off to colleges. We pay for scholarships to educate them, to bring them back here to make educated decisions for us. But we're not utilizing our resources. I have not come to the conclusion as to why we so love to not utilize our natural resources here, which is our people.
And I will jump in and make one quick point again. So I made a recommendation over probably 20 years ago. I can't remember the exact year. And it was for education, sports, arts and stuff. And my recommendation was, at the time, I think we had about 400,000 or 500,000 trust companies. My recommendation was, okay, can we create a fund where we get $10 a year from each one of these companies? Can fast forward to this year, whatever. So 1 year would be what, $4 or $5 million, right? If we just $10. And again, I said this was about 20 years ago.
Yeah.
The recommendation in, and I sent it to the education department. I did a long proposal. Did my thing. I got back a two-liner and said we have enough educational foundations in the BVI.
What's up?
That from the education department. That was a response back to me.
Yeah.
Somebody who was away trying to make contribution back home. A two-line sentence with the Department of Education letterhead and everything. We have enough educational foundation in the BVI already. That was so.
Gary, I was going to say that you copied that from me, but then you said it 20 years ago. I had to shut up. I thought a similar thing the other day. In fact, I didn't even say $10. I just said if every new company that is created, they just charge $1. Not even 10. Let's say we don't want to be hard.
Yeah.
$1.
And see, these things, the government can't do everything for you. Government cannot do everything for the society. We have to also keep that mindset. So this was the way where if you're getting $4 or $5 million a year from the offshore companies, which means government themselves don't have to put $4 or $5 million towards education. So then if you keep saving that money, keep investing it, you could pay for the high school, you could pay for all the different schools cash free without the government putting in their own funds. And their funds now for education could go towards scholarships, could go towards other areas for the citizens themselves.
Yeah.
But again, narrow-minded thinking and these narrow tunnels that I don't know what's going on. But yeah, that's one of the pet peeves that I had over these years.
Quality of leadership, because if you have leaders that think a certain way and align in with, as June said, national interests, what is of the benefit for the masses, then you have a budget of, let's say, over the last 10 years it was 300 million, so we spent, that's what, 3 trillion, if I doing the maths right, I don't know, but anyway, it's a lot of money we have playing around with, as if it's springing up out of the sea or something. This is money that people are working hard for, because we have to pay our taxes as the taxpayers. The money coming from the financial services is a large injection into the government budget. And these are things now too that we have to look at from an economic development standpoint as to how sustainable are some of these things. Because, every time we look around, the other day we just saw a press release, I think it was, talking about being placed on a blacklist again because of some rule change or some new rule being implemented that we need to come into compliance with constantly. So it's those are things now, again, we have to start to be really more keen on and mindful of. And we have no shortage of ideas, as y'all like saying, but we don't have leaders that are saying, hey, that's a good idea, let's run with it. It's not about partisan politics. And that for me is what the politics that people don't like. It's about the partisan politics, where things always align around the party ideology. And if it's not something they subscribe to, they can't see the benefit or the value in a thing. And as a result, you're holding the country hostage. That's what essentially it boils down to. Because there's no reason I should be talking about the same issues 20 years later, having returned from college.
Right.
As if to say, things that just make my hair stand on end is talking about, sewage. What is it to put some pipes in the ground, connect them to the houses, and send the stuff down the road to get processed in a plant? We have to be making 5 attempts now to get this done. And what we're doing? We're digging up the roads again to create more hazardous road conditions, is what I'll call them. And have to turn back around now and fix back the roads, because we're not doing things in a systemic way, with a plan to say we're going to dig up all of the utilities, put everything down properly, and then basically restore the road. And whenever it has to be touched again, there's a process of how that goes about, and make sure they're restored. I applaud the water and sewage department. They like to pile the dirt back up very high in the road so that when it sinks down, it's not below the road level. Because it takes forever if Public Works actually comes out and actually restores the surface of the road. These are some serious things that I don't know. I still maintain, though, guys, I'm being optimistic. Our better days are still ahead of us in terms of what we can do. Because, again, between the 4 of us right here, we're going to have our own little cabinet. And we could come up with a plan and go fix the country. So it's that even much greater that you can find other persons that share the same, thoughts and are like-minded and say, yeah, these are things that can happen. But if we get rid of the bait and switch and the bread and circus now, that has been plaguing us for the last 2 decades, then we may see some change.
Well, maybe the roads are pork and barrels. Maybe that's part of
The
the
pork barrel projects that we have to keep going. So we don't really want to fix the roads, because we always want to be fixing the roads. That's what you're saying.
Could be.
I kind of believe if we actually seek to have more conversations with the people and stop leaving them blind, stop leading them blindly. I think if we have more conversations with the people, we get a lot more done in this country. Because, I'm always of this assumption, like the roses will grow, roses will pop through the concrete at some point. You'll be able to identify a lot of meaningful individuals, if you have several conversations with people, but if you tend to want to keep everything in a nutshell and then present it to people in a fashion as though we're trying to hear from you, but it's already a finished product, people aren't,
Mhm.
trust me, we aren't stupid. People aren't stupid out here.
Yeah.
Sometimes, we see all these conversations happening. They're coming around saying we're trying to get your expertise, get your knowledge, and we already know, people are already out here know that it's just, you're just checking off the boxes.
Yeah.
At least we spoke to the people about it, but the finished product is already there.
Yeah.
You already came with your preconceived notions. So it's like, why are you trying to fool the people off?
Hmm. Yeah, and it's to play on the naivety sometimes of those who don't know, by giving misinformation intentionally. And we saw that with US in the US political cycle in 2020, that
Yes.
whole thing was pure misinformation. And people were, completely confused at the end of it, because it's like you're so confused, you don't know who to vote for or what to vote for, because some of it isn't true, but it's like you can't really discern know exactly what it is, because it's information overload in so many regards, you know. But guys, we're gonna start to wrap up now. I just have one question I just posted up, and one person was talking about the importance of the press, and that the press needs to ask tough questions to hold them, meaning the politicians, accountable to help with the education of the people. And those are very important things. We had I saw breaking news this week about an incident at a press conference.
Yes.
And I all agree, you need to have codes of conduct and things that guide everybody, the rules of the road, so to speak. But they do have a very important role to play. And it's not just to break news, but to really do the investigative journalism that's needed on a lot of the issues now that we're facing as a country, to make sure now that people are being informed and following on what's going on. Because when you go to the polls to vote, you should not be voting for a name. You have to know, what are the policies that this person is saying that they're going into. A few weeks ago, we talked about, Paul, the importance of, with this election, electing people who can go to England now and negotiate the next constitution, and know, what it is those people are standing for, in terms of, are they for decolonization or not, and what, and if not, what are they in favor of, and ask them those questions as far as it relates to what their platforms are and should be on the thing. But we have to seriously bring focus to what we're doing as a country and our development, and the quality of our leaders is something we have to start to take very seriously. I tell people I get involved because I believe in being the change I want to see. And if it is that it has to be me to do it, then it has to be me. And I encourage everybody else to think the same way. Whether it's getting in politics or in civic organizations, all these different community organizations we were talking about, guys, the programs that existed, that are all, to me, in part of the education system of the country. Whether it's CATS, it's the sports leagues, it's the Scouts and the Girl Guides Association. All of these things are
Program.
part of, yeah, all of these are things that are part of the community's development. And it's not just for the government to do, but for all of us to get engaged and involved in some way, shape, or form. So on that note, we're gonna start to wrap up, and I give you guys your 30 seconds rolling. Starting with you, Paul. Go ahead.
Yeah, 30 seconds quickly. I just wanted to say that we thought of that $1 trust for trust companies for incorporation for the maintenance of the horse track. I'm not going to get into that today. The other thing I just want to say is that I hope that at some point in time you go back to Ms. Penn's comment that should the responsibility of the country's finance be removed from the premier. I think that's a very important point, and that really will help the Virgin Islands to move forward. That's my 30 seconds.
All right. Gary or Aaron, whichever one.
So I'll go. I will say, going back, I think which sums up a lot. I think, you want to talk about this too. I think education. When we talk about education, education doesn't necessarily mean about somebody getting a degree or in that form. I think education goes a long way when we talk about educating ourselves about policies, procedures, and the way things are with the government. Education also touches on our history, where we came from, and how we move forward. So I think one of our biggest things that we kind of, I think, would be helpful for everyone in the society is becoming more educated. Again, I'm not talking about educating from a degree point of view, but being educated on processes, history, policies, and moving forward. And also being educated on what is being talked about when we talk about the House of Assembly and how it affects you as well too, being able to have a voice on those things as well too. And also lastly, be educated on your politicians that are coming to be elected in this upcoming season too. Don't become, oh, this is a familiar name, familiar face. Become educated on what this particular person, male or female, stands for on their platform and on their personal journey and what they want to do for you as a country. So those are my thoughts.
All right, thank you.
And in my, I don't really have much to say. I'm basically just, it's just time that we just start tapping into our natural resources or people. Just start doing
Yeah.
the things that are right by the people, the things that we campaign about, the things that are on the platform, the things that are on the manifesto. For the first time, let's follow a manifesto. Let's follow, let's follow the right procedures and the policies for the people. Let's implement things in place to help the next generation. It's not really about the present generation. You have to put things in place that are for the present generation. The next group of leaders that are going to take up the mantle, take up the portfolio that is there before them, and be able to utilize it and to say, as though we said about the Honorable Lavity Stowe, that he has put something in place for future generations to come. Like we have to start thinking in that mindset. What are we putting in place for the future generation?
Legacy.
Instead of everything just being for the now, we are so much of a people, or I should say, so much of a government institution that just address the needs of the present. We just address the needs. We don't put things in place where we're innovative, where it's more, as Gary said, we're more proactive than being reactive. I just wish to see us actually take health in this country extremely serious. It's something I'm extremely passionate about. Health education. I'm not the greatest person when it comes to finance, because finance is not my greatest background. But when it comes to health and education, I want to see us as a people, living in a society where we're conscious of the things we eat, we're conscious of the things we drink, we're more conscious of our air, or air pollution, or environment around us. We're conscious of what we throw into the sea, and all of this goes in part to educating your people, because if they don't know, they don't know. But if they know, then they would think twice into doing certain things. So,
Yeah.
I just want to see us. I want to see us as a country just start doing things. And there's some things next time, if I'm invited onto the show, there's a topic I would really love us to open on when it comes to health in this country, because I researched Kobe Bryant when he got injured, when he blew out his Achilles. All the doctors that are in America, Kobe Bryant went all the way to Germany to rehab. And a lot of the things he did were a lot of the things that we are accustomed to around this country: the seawater, the constant horrible medications and so forth, all these things he used. So why we as a nation haven't tapped into go back to our natural resources around here, which are our people, tap into a lot of the things we have around us, and try to become one of the real first Caribbean countries that probably have a cancer treatment, institution. I mean, everybody, you're always saying, but how we gonna afford it? Hello, There's a lot of things we have in this country we have afforded to build. But it's,
Mm-hmm.
it's a mindset. It's a mindset about thinking far, because those things create revenue injection into your country. Once
Yeah.
marketed properly, it's a different outlook for your country.
Yeah. And those are things that you touched on right there. That's medical tourism. That's what
Thank
that is. So it's not as far fetched as it might sound, because medical tourism means you're providing a service to persons to actually come to your country as a visitor to
Yes.
receive medical care of some sort. So it's a matter of tapping into what is that need that persons will be drawn to come to do. Because that, Bougainvillea Clinic was into medical tourism way before it became a thing.
Yep.
Because people would come to get plastic surgery, right? That's all I knew that clinic was about, right?
Same here growing
So
up.
it's earlier, it's like later on in life you started to hear about all the other things that Dr. Tatasal did. He was one of those general practitioners. He did everything.
Mhm.
And because we had few doctors here, but yeah, medical tourism isn't something new for us here in the territory. So even before it became a thing, that's we had pioneers that actually that is what they were doing, because they saw the need for it. So persons come, they have their surgeries, they recover in a beautiful place, they here for a week or two, and then they return back home. And again, they have to stay someplace, they have to drive a vehicle, they have to eat. So all of these are of economic value, through something as simplistic as that. And it has the added I would say the added benefit to the local population that you have these services here if you should need them. In
Right.
terms of, if it's a cancer institute, these things are located here. We don't have to travel off to the US mainland or anywhere else, because we start to innovate these things within our own borders. And it's nothing that's, again, I don't know. I sometimes wonder if it's the some people grew up in the same country I grew up in, because I tell people, I'm a product of the public school system, so let's not knock it. It means something has changed from when I was there, that we need to figure it out and get it back on track and take it to that next level.
Right.
It's the public school system, sometimes it gets dragged through the mud as if it's the worst thing on the planet, and it's not.
No.
It has to do with, again, the quality of your teachers, the quality of leadership in the school, putting money into education in the budget so that the resources are there for the system to work. And if over the years you progressively just keep cutting back, cutting back, cutting back, it's no way you're gonna get the same results and outcomes. You have to invest. So that's kind of where we are, I think. And that's why I want standing finance committee meetings to be public, so we could hear what the real discussion is and the decisions being made about how money is allocated towards the different ministries for the different programs. Because it is like all this money, and we're not seeing the results that we're supposed to see after it's been spent now over all these years. you know so, but guys, I think I have every confidence we're going to get it together. I have every confidence, because that's the stock we came off of. We came out of people who were very resourceful. Again, they had very little, but they made do, and they always figured out a way to make things work and get things done. And we were never afraid of hard work. So I get offended when I hear people talk about Virgin Islanders being lazy, because I'm like, it's no way we could have gotten to where we are being lazy. Again, something has changed, and with that, we have to go back to what is the value system of our society now. Are we serious about when it comes to teaching our young people responsibility and work ethic, or we're just trying to make life easy for them, and then they end up now becoming lazy and feeling entitled that somebody owes them something because they're not willing to work for it. So these are those things that we're talking about, I think, for the last 6 weeks, in terms of that mindset shift that has to happen in order for us now to see the progress. But if people keep thinking the same way but expecting different results, then as they say, it's insanity.
Insanity.
So we have to know what it is we're doing. We're not at a crossroads with this election either. I've been telling people we are hanging off a cliff, and there's somebody that's at the top trying to push us down. And it's essentially, it's almost like life and death. So we have to figure out a way to get off of this cliff face and get back up on stable ground and start to move our country forward with a purpose. As our principal used to tell us, to move with a
With a
purpose.
purpose.
That's what we have to start to do with our country. We have to start to move with a purpose, you know. So on that note, I will leave us with a word of encouragement for the week. Gary and I will discuss whether or not we're going to be back next month, but I do hope, again, persons have learned a lot, taken away a lot of the information. All the videos are up on the Vigilante Dialogues Facebook page as well as our YouTube channel. So you can go back and view them at any time and leave your comments and ideas as far as, what you want to see in our country in the next 20 years and think that we should be working towards as a priority, because it's very important discussion now that hinges right back into the Constitution review and, what the changes are that are needed in the Constitution to move us again in the direction that we want to be in the next 20 years. So everything is always, a circular conversation. And it's important for us to see the connections and connect those dots to make sure that we're all about the right things and having that nationalistic view, country above self, people. So a word of encouragement for the week: you have to fight through some bad days to earn the best days of your life. And I want us to underline the word fight, because what I find these days is that we become soft. Again, we like to talk about the March of 1949 and Noel Lloyd, but we have to understand the fighting spirit that had to come along with these actions. So it's important that we're willing to, take the fight up for the causes that we believe in and to take a stand for what is right in our country. And we're going to get through the bad days because, again, our best days are ahead. So on that note, I'll wrap up. This is your host, Shaina M. Smith Archer, here with my friends, Paul Hewlett, Aaron Paralon, and Gary Reimer from the BVI Buzz podcast. Paul, what's the name of your show?
Paul on the ball.
Paul on the Ball? Oh, that's the name of the show? Okay, there you go. From the Paul on the Ball show. Saying, let's continue to change the conversation for a better Virgin Islands. Have a good night.